Good afternoon, and we welcome you to today's COSIDA Capital One Listening and Learning webinar and leading. We are pleased to offer a discussion today on planning and prioritizing for the fall. I'm Jim Powers, the coordinator of athletic communications at Maryville University in St. Louis, and I will be moderating today's panel. It's an outstanding panel and a very timely panel with the events of the last month or so with fall sports being moved and different things along those lines. So this is going to be a great panel, some great things that you're all going to be able to take away from our panel today. We appreciate everybody joining us. Before we begin, we'd like to say a quick thank you to our corporate partner, Capital One, presenting sponsor of our continuing education series. As a reminder, the webinar will be posted later on today at cosida.com. We will also have this as a podcast, and you'll be able to download it from the services listed on cosida.com, and we will place this webinar on our COSIDA YouTube channel. We want to hear from you. We've got a bunch of questions already that we are going to make every effort to get through in the next hour, but if you have questions, we want to hear what you have on your mind. Please use the chat box, which you'll find on the right side there, and we'll have plenty of time at the end with our panelists to address all of those questions. If not, we do have a backup plan because this is such an important topic that we may do a part two. And it's going to cover all three of our NCAA divisions. We're going to have Mike Gambardella, the Associate AD of Strategic Communications from Yale, from the Division I side. From the D2 side, Jalen Ellison, she's the Assistant AD for Communications at William Jewell College. And finally, from Division III, from Sul Ross State University, he's the Director of Sports Information, Derek Polacki. So, this is a great group. They're coming all sorts of angles for you, and we're going to get this thing kicked off with Mike. And Mike, you guys were kind of the first ones to kind of go down this road, so to say. So, talk a little bit about what your plan is going to be for the fall, some of the things you guys are going to look to do on the Division I level, and especially at Yale.
Oh, thank you very much, Jim, and appreciate the platform to hopefully share some ideas that might help the rest of COSIDA out. And as you said, the Ivy League seemingly kind of setting the tone for the rest of the conferences and colleges out there, making the decision back in March to, unfortunately cancel the men's basketball tournament and then spring sports soon after. And now it's crazy after yesterday to see, those Power 5 conferences for football making their decisions. That came nearly a month after the Ivy League had made their decision already. And again, I think we all realize that this is a health and safety issue. And at the heart of it, we want to keep, ourselves, our staff, our team members, especially our student athletes, extremely safe. And why now we kind of have to talk about, the fall, what we're going to do to continue to be productive, and those strategies that really kind of help us out and map it out. I think a lot of us were forced into it back in March. We didn't really know what we were doing and how we might be able to make that work for us. And I think that's the crux of it for today's panel is, we've done a lot of different things at Yale. You're going to hear a lot from Jalen and Derek about what they've done. And hopefully some of it might spark an idea for you, obviously with different setups, different, team members, how many people you have. We've talked about in the past panels about having a toolbox, all of the resources that are available to you, and making great use of them. My toolbox at Yale is very full. I'd be remiss if I didn't start this out without thanking my creative department, Nina Lindberg, Jeff Bell, Evan Ellis, my 3 SIDs, and Steve Kahn, Tim Bennett, and Sam Rubin, who have been absolutely fantastic and unimaginably malleable in this situation, where I'm able to kind of put a plan in forth and they are the ones that execute this. I didn't make that. Jeff did. He's really talented. That's not me, but I know that and I take advantage of it. I was able to do some of these things when I worked at the D3 level at Catholic, and now at least I have that background to kind of share with everybody else, and we can start to put those strategies in place. To speak on what we've done at Yale thus far, we have had a month knowing what our decision was, that there will be no competition. There will hopefully be practice. We've seen some Ivy League schools announce that they are no longer going to have students on campus. For us right now, we will, and we'll kind of progress with that plan. The thing that we decided that was going to be best for us is what I dubbed program meetings, to continue the communication that we've had and the buy-in that we've had from our coaches and staffs. So we set up individual Zoom meetings with each of our head coaches, our SIDs, creative department, myself, sports supervisor if they could. And then if their coaches decided they wanted their entire staff a specific social media contact, and we were able to have an hour-plus discussion on the state of their programs and how we can best serve them. We're so used to having games to dictate what we were doing, previews, recaps, awards, all of those things that are no longer available to us. Luckily, there are still some that will have that opportunity, hopefully. But right now, we are not in that boat. Sure that what we're doing lines up with what our coaches need. It was great to have those conversations, great to hear what they needed, and tough sometimes to say, no, we can't do that, but knowing that we can always pivot to say we can take that idea and fit it into something that could work for us. You know, we're not a Power 5 conference. We are Ivy League. We have some resources, but we can't do everything. But we can always do something to help our coaches out. We had some things that we decided were going to work well for us. We had our One Bulldog Nation platform when all of this came out in March, and being able to, you know, thank and honor all, not lose time or years that they can come back and compete again. So we wanted to do things a little bit differently. Obviously, we continue to do all of those social media trends, whether it be a Facility Friday, Wallpaper Wednesday, Motivation Monday, Throwback Thursday. Tuesday escapes me, but Nina will yell at me later for not remembering that one. And we're going to continue to do those things. We continue to monitor the professional leagues, those alumni that are now competing. We just had a Premier Lacrosse League champion, made sure to get stuff out on social that way. We can set up interviews afterwards, whether it be those in the NFL, MLB, Women's Professional Soccer League once they get started up. There's a lot of different opportunities to continue to find athletics and where it fits in for us, and a digestible athletic component that our fan base is so hungry for. Some other things that we'll continue to do are on this day feature that goes for all of our programs, whether it be, you know, your coach's first game ever coached, their first win, milestone program wins, conference championships, NCAA berths, scoring records, anything that really kind of builds those social media content feeds for you throughout your teams. And with 35 teams, we definitely have a lot of content coming out. But we want to make sure that we continue to do that. As I mentioned earlier, it gets more and more difficult when those previews, recaps, and awards start to disappear. And suddenly we're creating content truly in its earnest sense, because there's no roadmap here. We're all on it together. And I encourage everyone to continue to look at what all of your peers are doing. Don't really just look to the Power 5, look to a D3, a D2, an NAIA. They might have some fun ideas that you didn't even think of. And I'm sure we'll touch on some, and Jalen and Derek have some great ideas as well to share with you. But continue to look for those. I'll leave you with a few last ones that we decided to continue to do. It is a new year. The 2020-21 season will start in some shape or form. So we were sure to change our look and feel. We know, you know, we're not going to have athletic competition. This is a new year for our student athletes, and that means something to them. So we wanted to make sure we are changing that as well, just to really hone in on the past decade and what has really happened, and honor those teams, get some great social content. And it's actually opened some doors with alumni, actually an artist. He does amazing charcoal drawings. Didn't know that. Guess what? He's going to be doing some for me shortly and soon enough. But don't forget about the alumni piece as well. And Jim, the final piece that I want to get before I turn it back over, I think I've talked long enough, that is really important to us here at Yale, is our social justice and inclusion. We don't want that to get lost. We had plans for what we were going to do with games. Those now pivot for what we're going to do without them. Having task force with associate ADs, assistant and associate head coach, administration, really heading up the charge and working closely with them to build web pages off of Zoom and in person, and really making sure that's at the focus of everything that we're doing as we continue to move forward in some unprecedented times. And unfortunately, we've been using that word since March. We'll continue to use it, and I'll continue to look and see what my peers do as well throughout this space.
Awesome, Gambo. And I'm going to ask you a quick question. And this was one of the questions that was submitted. And you mentioned, some of the ideas staying, relevant during, on social media when there's not events. And I think you hit on one perfectly. I think all of our schools have, some outstanding alumni. This is a great time, isn't it, to get them out there on social media saying, hey, this person went to Yale. Let's utilize them on some of our social media to kind of help with that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And it was none more evident for us when we had men's lacrosse player Ben Reeves, who just won a national championship 2 years ago and just got the NCAA post-grad scholarship. You're looking for those things that touch on and off the fields of play. As I mentioned, again, another lacrosse story, getting a PLL champion who happens to be going to med school. As a employee of Yale, I cannot mention what school he's going to for med school. It happens to be up north, and their colors might be maroonish, but I cannot mention their name by law. But yeah, finding out those alumni features, utilizing your coaches, your development officers, your administration, have those conversations. That's why I led off with that program meeting. It becomes so important because you get that face time, in this setting at least, to find out about your programs, about your coaches. This is their baby. They know all of those people who have come before them. We're lucky to have some coaches who are 30 years on the job. We'll have some newer coaches to do as well. But I guess that brings you to a great point, Jim, of finding what your strengths are, especially for those departments that have a few different people. If it's doing interviews in a Zoom setting, if it's feature writing, if it's graphic design work, anything like that. Find out what works for you and make the most of it.
No doubt about it. Thanks so much, Mike. We appreciate your knowledge, and I know we'll bring you back in here for some Q&A in a little bit, but let's go to the Division II side right now. And Jalen, you've got the unfortunate part of this to where you're a one-person shop out at William Jewell, and so a lot of the stuff is falling directly on your shoulders. So kind of talk about what your fall is going to look like and some of the things that you guys are going to be doing out in Kansas City.
Yeah, like Jim said, I'm the definition of a one-man shop. I don't have a GA or student assistants or anything like that, so I'm kind of a lone ranger. We will be having students back on campus beginning next week, and so they're moving in. I honestly have no idea what it's going to be like. We hopefully will make it through Thanksgiving, but they could also be headed home by mid-September. We honestly have no idea. And I'm definitely somebody that likes to plan. I like to know what's coming and what I need to be doing. And that's really been a struggle for me this summer, just not knowing what's coming. A couple weeks ago, we got some clarity from our conference on what our fall was going to look like, or maybe rather what it wasn't going to look like. And so that really gave me an opportunity to sit down, take a breath, and say, okay, what now? And my focus has really kind of been two paths, very obvious paths. First, what do we do if they're on campus and they're able to participate in athletic activities, not competitions necessarily, but practices? And then the opposite, obviously, is, what do we do if they go home? And then in the middle, we have some stuff of projects and things that I need to be doing and assisting our staff with, regardless of where our athletes are. And there were two other things I wanted to keep in mind as I was planning this. And the first was, I'm a big believer in quality over quantity. I don't necessarily think you have to post every day. When I first started, I would see Division I's and they were doing that and they were getting great engagement. And I quickly realized that at the small college D2 in a big metro area, that's not going to work for us. And so we try not to do that and try to make sure that anything that we're posting is meaningful to some constituent group, if not multiple, whether it be our students, our parents, our fans, our alumni, making sure it's meaningful to someone. And then the other piece is without fall games, there's no reason that I should be working 80 hours a week like I might in a normal fall. So making sure that I'm not overwhelming myself and that I am planning for things that I can feasibly do in a reasonable amount of time. And so with those things in mind, the things that I'm planning to do as long as our athletes are on campus, several small things, but the main big three things are, first, your traditional video series interviews, being able to bring our athletes and our students in, whether it be via Zoom or actually in person, distance, and just talk about what's like for them as humans. I keep saying, what's it like on the inside. I should probably really come up with a better phrase for that. But you know, parents, they're not going to be able to come to campus. There's no games to come see. And so we want to know what life is like for those student athletes. And then for coaches, it's what are you telling your kids and what are the services on our campus that you can direct them to? So kind of in a secondary way, plug some of those offices like your mental health support services, your academic support services, and being able to support them in their pursuits of their degrees. And then the next thing is obviously practice coverage. We are so sport deprived at this point that, in my opinion, as long as it's positive, pretty much any sports content is going to be good content. So going out to practice and having those 30 to 90-second clips of practice, maybe a small soundbite with an athlete. I mean, that's something I can shoot on my cell phone. I can go in the office and put it into Premiere, or if you're like me and learned Final Cut primarily in college, I still use that a lot. You know, throw some music on there, a lower third, and call it good. That's something I can produce multiple times a week. And we get great engagement on that anyways. And I think because, like we said, we're so sport deprived, it's going to be even more effective and more relevant for us at this point. And then the third thing is we don't have new games, so we're going to look at old games. In the Mabee Center, we have this room that's probably 40 foot long, and it should probably be in some kind of museum exhibit of the history and evolution of video technology, because we have on the far end, we have the film reels from 1957, and then we have all the VHS and all the DVDs, and then all the way up to 2020 and the hard drives. So we have so many games to choose from. And we've gone through and kind of identified some of those national tournament games, the national semifinal and finals football games that we played in the early 1980s, those nationally ranked, you know, teams that you upset or double overtime wins, things like that. Those are going to mean something to our alumni, but our student athletes are also, they love to see and hear about those people that played before them. Not every place is like that, but our athletes really, really do enjoy that. And so we're going to focus on some of those games in kind of replacement of our ones we don't have. And then unfortunately, if our student athletes go home, which we certainly hope they don't, but if it happens, we're going to continue those video series just from a distance, obviously. And then we're going to shift into more championship recaps. We have over 100 championships here at Jewel, whether it be conference, region, national. And when I arrived, we had one record book. And so I've spent the last 5 years doing research, and it is finally going to pay off. That we have the opportunity to share some of those things and kind of relive those moments through, you know, photos, stats, newspaper articles, whatnot. And again, kind of connecting with the alumni as well as with the current players. And then we like Instagram takeovers. I know some people are kind of venturing away from that, but our athletes love it. They freak out if they get to be the person that does that. And they love seeing their teammates, their classmates, parents love seeing their kids do it. And so it's something that's super simple. Changing a password and having a conversation about common sense and, you know, not using bad words, and let them go. We've never had an issue with it. They do a great job and they love it. So we're going to do that. And then those things that we have, you know, we're going to focus on the traditional Hall of Fame, record books, things like that. But my big focus this fall will honestly be recruiting. You know, we are a small private college with just under 50% student athletes in our population. And like everyone, we live and die by recruiting. And so I'm doing something pretty similar to Mike, and also having those conversations with our coaches of just sitting down and asking the questions, what do you need? What do you want? What can I help you with? You know, anything like that. What have you seen on social media, on someone else's website? Not necessarily just what's cool, what looks awesome, because that's great, but that's not really helpful. And so, but what can I help you do? And I think while that's gonna vary based on sport, you're also gonna find some themes that you can use across your department. For us, we've already found out that facility videos is something we really need. We have a great admissions teams that's done a phenomenal job with our virtual tours, but they don't include our athletic facilities. So we've signed 40 freshman football players, and over half have never seen our football field because it's not an opportunity they've had. And so we've already started the process of creating some of those things. But I think you're going to find that having those conversations is really important, because some coaches are going to transition to this virtual recruiting a lot easier than others. You know, we have a wrestling coach who started last week. Thanks, Jim. Came from Maryville. We like him so far. But he's very young. He has no head coaching experience. He has, I believe, 4 years, correct me if I'm wrong, of assistant coaching. So he's, you know, not got a lot of experience there, but he's young. He's into social media. This is not going to be quite the shock for him as it will be for others. You know, our baseball coach has been recruiting the exact same way for 20 years, and we had to tell him what Amazon was last year because he had no idea. So that kind of gives you an idea of where his technology level is. So some coaches are going to come in, they know what they want. They have an idea of what they're looking for and how to execute. Is my job. And then for others, it's just getting the wheels turning and letting them know when you get to that point that you figure out what you need, or you come, have an idea, I'm here for you. I want to help you, because like I said, as a small college with 50% student athletes, if my coaches are successful in their recruiting efforts, that's going to mean that we're successful and the college is successful, and more than anything, sustainable. And honestly, in this financial climate, in my opinion, that is the most important thing, is making sure that we can support our student athletes and we can be sustainable enough to continue to support them for years to come. So anything I can do to help my coaches recruit and make their lives easier and better and connect with their recruits and their current student athletes, those are the big things that I'm going to focus on this year at D2.
No doubt. And you mentioned record books, and I think that is the vein of our existence, I think, for everybody that is in athletic communications. But it's such an important thing, and this is a perfect time. And I know, Jalen, you mentioned it. This is a perfect time too, if you haven't had a chance to really dig deep into your record books. This is a great time, because you mentioned it. Alumni love to see where they stack up. The current students love to see where they're, what they're shooting for. So, the importance of record books are extremely huge, and especially at this time.
Absolutely. Like I said, we had one record book. I've spent every spare minute of the last 5 years creating those. Luckily, we transitioned to Division II about 10 years ago, so we had kind of a starting point, and now it's just building backwards. And trust me, alumni look at them because they are first people to let you know if there's something missing. But it's also a great way to let them know, like, hey, we are working on it. We do care about that, because I think from interactions with some of our alums, they just kind of make this assumption that nobody really cares about it. So putting it up there and making it a priority that says, hey, we're putting in the research and we're posting it on our website because we do care about what you did when you were here, that is really valuable to them.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And I know we're going to bring you back into the conversation here in a few minutes, but we've got to head down to the Lone Star State now and hear from Derek on the Division III side. And Derek, you've got quite a bit down there that you're dealing with, especially at Sul Ross, but also the Division III side. What is your plan? And I think you've got a very interesting point of view on working with the university as well.
Well, thank you, Jim. First off, Jalen, Mike, and everybody that put this together. And first, I got to give a little shout out to my high school buddy, Joe Fitzhenry, assistant SID at University of Scranton. Who'd have thought a couple of Saratoga Springs High School alums would be in the profession someday? So that's really cool. He texted me earlier. When my buddy Adam Ledyard, who's the East Texas Baptist University savant over there, said, "Hey, do you want to come on this and tell everybody what you're doing for the next couple months?" I said, man, I don't know what's going on tomorrow, but at the same time, I think we're all kind of feeling that we're in a rapidly evolving situation. I'm sure we all remember where we were back in March when the sports stopped. So we're all in an interesting time for sure. But Jim, you did mention the fact of bringing the whole university together, and like Jalen, it's me and it's one other guy. Remember that part in Major League 2 when Willie Mays Hayes walks out with 68 people? Who are they? Well, me and my guy are our sports information department. That's it. So, and what we try to do is put out as much as we can. But again, Jalen, you hit the nail on the head that it's got to be quality over quantity at the D3 and some of the D2 levels. When the pandemic hit, we were in the midst of hiring a new athletic director and a new president of the university. So we were expecting change, and it's already happened, and it's been phenomenal. So I've got a new boss that comes in with 1,000 different ideas, a new president that now wants to move part of his public relations department and sort of couple it with the athletic sports information department. So he wants to bring everyone together so you're not reinventing the wheel, writing the wheel twice. We can help them. They can help us. Their public relations guy is a screenwriter. My video guy is an Emmy Award-winning graphic and video savant. I've done on-camera television, live radio, TV for years. So the fact that you don't bring those people together and then put a support staff under them wouldn't make sense. So that's what we're doing. And Jim, you hit the nail on the head when you said, bringing everything together. And that's important because then that helps us over in athletics understand more about the other departments on campus and some of the student athletes that are good at charcoal painting and whatnot. You learn that kind of stuff, and that's the stuff we want to know about as well. I remember we had a basketball guy last year that was a heck of a graphic designer, and we wanted to do something on that, and then things happen and another project comes about, and it is what it is. So that's a big thing that we're working on, and it all comes together. We're working on an I Love Sol Ross campaign right now, but guess what? Student athletes love Sol Ross too. So we can bring their public relations over to ours, use our facilities to get our student athletes involved with it. And it's one big happy family. Now, when the pandemic hit, it was, what are we gonna do? And we were hiring a president, and we were hiring an athletic director, and we were kind of trying to figure out what to do. First thing I did was I emailed every coach, listen, these are my plans for the future. I want to know what you want. Tell me what I can do for you. I've got time. I'm at home now. I've got my computer. Most of us know we can go remote for a decent amount of time with some of the technology we have. Maybe it's not everything, but I had my camera. I had my computer. I had my Adobe suite, so I could do graphic and video editing, and my guy as well, Derek Razor, that does that. So that stuff could be done. But also, you have outside the box. There. 4 tournament. We played Connect 4 and I lost. Can't remember who I lost to, TLU or Southwestern. Adam would probably remember. We were throwing GIFs at each other and having fun with it, and I had coaches texting me, you better not lose to them, and I lost. So you got to think outside the box, and we've done that from quick little coaches videos where I run in with a camera and say, tell me a couple things, and we put it together with music and a graphic, and everything's good. One of the things I'm proud of is, and most of us will know that there's always more to learn. And I'm self-taught in Photoshop, a couple of tips here and there from people, but I get better at it every day. So I spearheaded recruitment graphics, and we see them all over the place. I'm sure Mike and Jalen can attest to that. You get somebody in that's coming to play baseball, and they want something to show off. They go on Twitter, they'll find our logos on Google, and they'll say, hey, I'm coming. So let's give them something. You're committed? Let's go. So you make a commitment graphic with who they are and where they came from and what position they are, and a couple shots of the university, maybe the baseball field or the basketball court, and you spend hours on them just editing names and cropping pictures and whatnot. And they freak out about them because they feel important. You got to make your student athletes feel important and loved, because they're coming here to not just continue their athletic career, but their academic career as well. And when people see that, high school friends of theirs that haven't graduated yet, and they want to, and I'll go to that place, man, that looks awesome. Look what they have. Facilities videos. Like Jalen said, we are lacking on those. And that's something we got to do. We want to show off our football field and our turf. We want to show off the Gallego Center that seats thousands of people, and it's just awesome. We've got an historic baseball field that was built in 1947 that had Norm Cash, Satchel Paige play on that field. We got to show that stuff off. But it comes down to help. We are our sports information department. We can only do so much at one point. We're putting out a COVID video, an instructional video right now, just so when our student athletes get here, they realize the protocols that have been put in place, what they can and can't do, what the university has done to take a proactive approach. I've got my video guy on that. That's going to take him a week just on that. So I've got to table a bunch of stuff that we want to do, because we got to get something out on a deadline before we can get some of these other ones that just don't quite know a deadline, but they're all written down. You see my whiteboard back here. They can attest that was full of stuff. I had to erase it. I didn't want to spill too much of the beans and a couple of stuff. So I took a picture of it and put some awards and pictures back there. But I mean, And Jalen said, we're not working 80-hour weeks, but there's going to be times where we might pull a 12, 14-hour day. Already done that, just because there's just so much going on. And again, our profession doesn't know an 8 to 5. Something could happen at 9 o'clock at night, and you got to get typing. It happens all the time. I'm looking at my my list here. Throwback Thursdays and stuff like that. It's so boilerplate. We posted one about Dan Blocker, who was Hoss Cartwright on Bonanza. I posted 3 photos and gave a little bit of a blurb about, within the parameters of Twitter's count there, a little bit of a blurb about that. On Facebook, it got hundreds and hundreds of shares and likes. It got more shares than likes. More people shared it than just hit like. And that was just one of those, I've got these pictures, I've got this info, let's throw this on there. And it lit. You never know what you got until you post it for sure. But at the same time, like Jalen said, quality over quantity and utilizing your history. We got video from 1965, colored football footage that we've edited down. We're going to get some of the players from that team to zoom in with us, do an interview, talk about what happened. You got to talk about your history with the books and the footage you have, because at the same time, you cannot let them be forgotten. Yes, the current and the future is great, but you wouldn't always be where you were without your past success. And that's what we got to capitalize on as well. And I thank you for your time and can't wait for some questions.
Well, this one's for you. This is coming directly from, D3. What's your recommendation for keeping student staff engaged with projects, specifically interns who need to do internship credit hours?
Well, if we can get some interns and some staff, I'd love to have them. And it's something we're talking about. But, you got to get them started on something. And what me and my team that's slowly being assembled to what we're doing with the other side is logging video. We've got video, but we need a database so we can go, oh, I want to find this player because he's going in our Hall of Honor and we need video. Right now, I'd have to go find one of his games, scrub through it. That. We got that. Edit it down, put it together. We need to streamline that. Put them in front of the computer. Say, you're going to watch these 3 basketball games today, and you're going to tell me every little thing that happened. You're going to chop it up. You're going to put it. You're going to mark it. You're going to database it. So we can do that. And that's worth something to them. They need to have that kind of stuff. So when it comes down to it, who knows? A couple of years down the line, they're editing highlights, and they've got a knack for it. And it's all, muscle memory and whatnot. But at the same time, we want to teach. I think all of us here, we want to teach, and we want to instill what we've done. I've called games from Division I basketball to high school to football, lacrosse, field hockey, baseball. I've done everything but about bowling. I want to teach people. I've shot Division I for UAlbany football on sideline cam. I've done some really cool stuff in my time. If I can take one of these interns and teach them, this is what you do with a camera, and then this is how you put it on, and this is how you edit it. So down the line, a couple of months from now, hey, you're not just logging stuff. I want to send you out there to do that project, bring it back to me so I can focus on something else. That's worth its weight in gold. So, and again, you also want them to think outside the box and come to you with ideas. I can tell you to do this, and this. That's great. But I might be forgetting about this and that. Tell me what you think you should be doing at the same time, because one of these days you're going to tell me something and I'm going to go, that's brilliant. Let's do this. How do we do it? Talk to me. So again, it's give and take. It's ebb and flow. And it's really just finding a happy medium of stuff that they need to do, but also letting them kind of spread their wings at the same time while teaching them something.
And the one thing I'll throw into that for everybody is this is going to be, a time to where if you have new interns, we all know for those of us that don't have anything in the fall, but we have everything in the spring, this is a great time. And Mike and Jalen, I'll ask you to chime in. This is a great time. If they're not familiar with Stack Crew or they're not familiar with Genius or, Presto, this is a great time for them to sit down and train. I know we have a new GA here at Maryville that's starting. And one of the things is we're going to teach him how to do Genius for volleyball. We're going to teach him how to do baseball. And I think that's, going off what Derek said, I think that's going to be invaluable because it's going to be a great teaching point, but it's also going to be much needed in the spring. And Mike, I'll start with you on your thoughts with, interns.
Yeah, I'd have to agree completely with Derek and yourself. We actually just created a brand new internship page off of YaleBulldogs.com, and that's not just for athletic communications. That's for all of our departments, because we realize that that's something that we're going to have to take advantage of now. I think we've all kind of felt the pinch on our budgets. Unfortunately, some of us are free agents now because of those budget crunches. So we're going to have to use those people in need of internships. So whether it's being able to teach them, Stat Crew and Genius and all those game day projects or stat keeping systems when it gets to the spring, especially if a lot of those fall sports end up running over to that side. We joke often about how we can clone ourselves. Well, guess what? This is how you do it. You find the 18-year-old version of me, tell him, well, please go to class first and foremost because you didn't do that the first time. Do it now, and then learn the Stat Crew program as well. There's the invaluable pieces there that we definitely want to take advantage of. And I think it's also, we're going to have to help each other when it comes down to it, especially if the spring goes the way that it is leaning a little bit. I'm going to have to, dust off lacrosse Stat Crew. I'm going to have to, get on the microphone and be the public address announcer. I'm going to be calling Sacred Heart or New Haven. And likewise, they're going to do the same for us because we need people to help out. And you know what? It might actually just be in an intern capacity because our budgets can't sustain that. We're going to look to help each other because we are in some tough times right now, and we're going to have to be creative about how we're doing these things. We don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole because we don't know what these things are going to hold for us. We were very hopeful that we would be planning for a normal fall. Unfortunately, we are not. But again, I think that creativity and utilizing interns, whether it be in a remote setting or not, getting the chance to actually get hands-on and teach them in this setting, the same way we talked about being able to go through your archives, make those photo and video databases, get your record books up to date, all those things that we've talked about. I wish I had time to do this, but I really need just to take a week in the summer and finish out the rest of my projects. We actually have that time now. So utilize it where you can and try not to lose your mind in the process.
Jalen, you want to chime in on that?
Sure. We're a little bit different. I only use work study students. Up until like 3 years ago, I didn't even know that people actually had budgets for paying people that weren't work study. But that's just how we operate in athletics here. And so we're kind of in a boat where budgets are not really an issue because it's federal money. But we do have kids that they primarily work games, but without games, they still need that money. So, we have one of our students whose father lost his job due to the pandemic, and so she's, really needing the opportunity to work. So we're trying to find some of those smaller things of logging video, a lot like Derek said, updating record books. We have series records that need dates added to them rather than just scores. And so any of those small things that we can help them do so that they can still have a paycheck that they need to make it through their semester, then we're going to find something for them to do.
Awesome. Well, we've got some questions from everybody tuning in. We're going to get through as many of these as we can, and we actually got through some of the questions that were sent to us before, and we'll try and get through some others of those. From Kevin Mahoney, for those of us that are still moving forward with fall sports, how can we capitalize on it? We kick off a 6-game schedule on October 1 in Mississippi Junior College. Should we attempt to get games on ESPN3, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Gambo, I'll start with you.
Just because we have our deal with ESPN, so yeah, I guess that makes sense. The best advice I can give here is, you hit it on the head. You've got an extra month and a half here to prep for all those games. Get your production quality as high as it can get. And yes, absolutely, there are people who are desperate for live sports. There are just those college athletic enthusiasts that see that as true sport. They don't want anything to do with pro sports. So whether it's going to be you can get ESPN to pick them up, or if you're just going to do it on your Facebook platform, there's going to be more eyes on now than there ever has before because people are just so desperate for content. Whether it was the NFL draft, whether it's the return of baseball, People are so excited and the numbers are through the roof. Look at golf. People are desperate for sports. So the more work you can do on the front end to get those production values up and your game broadcast ready, the more chances you will have to get even more eyes on than you ever have before.
Jalen, Derek, you guys want to chime in on that?
I mean, I would just agree. Certainly, having that extra time to plan, and I think it comes down to, most of us, I think at this point, are not playing. And so if you're one of the few that gets the opportunity, take every advantage of that. Put your name out there as far as you can get it, because it's going to do wonders for you recruiting wise, and even just for the non-student athletes recruiting. I think take advantage of every opportunity you can as long as you're playing.
Yeah, they're both right. There's not much more to add than that, but make the product the best you can, because those eyes are going to be on you. Remember, they're going to be fixated on you because so few are playing. So shoot for the sky there. But again, that extra time is going to be huge to tweak a graphic or try something you haven't before within your limits. I know that's something we always try to do with all of our broadcasts and our streams year to year. Hey, what do you think we add this or try that? So utilize that to try it. And again, just to fine tune everything, once the eyes are on you.
Okay, from Allison Hogue, and this is for everybody. For those that are currently free agents, how can we stay productive during the fall? And unfortunately, we are seeing that, and we are going to see that in our profession. So I'll let y'all pose this to everybody. What advice do we have for those free agents out there?
I would say
Sure.
Those of us that will be playing in the spring, or even in the fall, we're probably going to need some help. So find some of those departments that need some help, even if it's the smaller stuff. And if you're still available in the springs, everybody's going to need help, and find those people and volunteer in any way you can.
And I would just echo that, thoughts and prayers with everybody who has unfortunately, been laid off or furloughed or had to go through that right now. And I'd actually tell everyone that is in the position where we do still have our opportunities to look at the schools around you that have gone through those things and identify those people. And if you have the opportunity in your budgets to just bring people on, even if it's for a few hours, to help with those record books, those graphics, those special projects, take advantage of that. To help each other out in this time. And for those that are looking for things to do exactly the same. Reach out to those schools and universities around you. Hopefully they can, get you into something, and if not, try and take advantage of the time to better yourself in an area where you haven't had the opportunity to do it. If it's, a graphic design, video production, anything like that. If you need to work on your writing, your editing skills, make use of your time. Don't just sit back and, say, okay, I'm going to get through this. Try and be proactive as best as you can, and use that to the best of your ability.
Yeah, terrific advice from Jalen and Mike. And the one thing I was going to add was don't get rusty. Don't be complacent. Try something new. I mean, I'm still on the job and I'm learning something from Photoshop or Premiere every day that helps me do better in my job, because there's going to come a time where people are going to come knocking, and people will hire people again, and people will hire people now again, even if it's for a couple hours to help you do this. If you're a tremendous graphic editor, I know there are schools around that are probably looking for graphic editors. Maybe you freelance yourself out for a little bit. Maybe you do something that has nothing to do with sports, but you can still utilize the craft that you have, whether it be graphic editing, video editing, voiceover work, on-camera work. If you've got that, there's other places that are thriving right now, even given the current circumstances. So you don't always limit yourself to, if you're thinking, I want to work in sports, that's fine. But there are other channels and avenues out there that can utilize your potential and your expertise.
Outstanding information right there. From John Barry, assuming all sports will take place in the spring, given the intense game management demands, what sacrifices do you think you're going to have to make?
I think, unfortunately, there will be a lot of sacrifices, and I made the joke about cloning yourself, but there's only so much you can do, and we've already talked about, quality over quantity. When that quantity starts to go up, the quality is going to go down. So you're going to have to identify, okay, if I'm trying to do a football game at the same time as a lacrosse game, I can only have so many people at the same time. we obviously realize that the stats piece of that needs to be there. The broadcast piece might not be there. I think now, especially through pandemic and the climate that we're in, everyone understands that. Some diehard fans will not, and will deal with the backlash on Twitter. We always do. But we're going to make those hard decisions. The game day operation, the statistical piece of that is going to be at the forefront. Unfortunately, the broadcast piece and perhaps, the Twitter updates, the graphics, we won't be able to do those things. And we just need to start those open and honest conversations with our teams, with our administration right now, so they realize what will happen if we decide to run these simultaneously.
You need to realize your capabilities, but also be rational and not try to drag yourself in 16 different ways to try and get everything done the same way. It's just not going to happen unless you've got a support staff or one person. You got an SID that can go to every game. I don't see that happening. It's me and it's my guy. And if we have football, basketball, and I don't know, soccer all at the same time, it's just, it's almost implausible, but it's a possibility for many schools, no matter what division you're at. And you just got to be honest with your superiors and tell them, listen, what we can do during normal times, but these aren't normal times. So something is going to have to suffer. And it's probably a broadcast or a social media component, because again, stats are important. But even for universities where maybe you have one statistician, because normally we don't have games that go simultaneously. We have a soccer and a football game the same day, but they're a couple hours before, so I can run over and do the other. You might have to figure out where maybe live stats don't happen, and you've got somebody keeping a book, so you can go in later and input the stats and get them to their respective places. So the best advice I can give is, once you figure out your schedules, you've just got to itemize everything that gets done. List the capabilities that are possible given the time, rationalize that, tell your superiors, listen, this is just how it's going to be. This is the best we can do, again, given the circumstances.
Yeah, I would echo both of those things. Those are conversations we've already had, with my AD on, if this is the way our schedules work out, granted we don't have those yet. I'm a little bit frightened to see them, I'm not gonna lie. But this is the amount of potentially money that we will need to hire help. And if we can't have that, then it's already conversations with coaches saying, hey, you need to be prepared, and you need to prepare your parents to understand that there may not be a broadcast. There might not even be live stats. If we don't have the staff as a one-person shop, if I can't hire out or there's nobody available, it may be the softball coach keeping a book or the volleyball coach providing game film afterward. And I think that, just having those conversations as early as possible and helping people to understand that, like Derek said, it's not normal times, and you're only one person.
Absolutely. From Robert McKinney, what are some good options for website content without game recaps and season previews wrap-ups? Among feature story ideas, do you have some unique ideas? And I'll throw one out that we did in the spring, once all this stuff, kind of happened. We actually emailed some of our seniors that were graduating, and we did a senior spotlight. And we emailed them 5 questions, and it's their words. We didn't edit. We didn't really do anything. I mean, we cleaned it up to make them sound good, but, we utilized that to kind of put a spotlight on some of these outstanding seniors, especially the spring sports seniors that lost that season. So that's just one of the things we did here at Maryville. I'll throw it out to you guys for some ideas that you guys may have.
I would say one important thing, and Jim, that was a fantastic idea, is when my boss always tells me, sports are supposed to be fun, and we know that. That's why we play the game, and that's why we do what we do. But even given the current circumstances, people need a laugh and they need a release. So we started sporadically, based on time, putting out videos that kind of echo what This is Sports Center used to do. Have fun. You've got your coaches there. Write up a script and shoot something. We put out a couple of them that had to do with just one of them. We turned our former SID, my old boss who worked in PR before he left, we turned him into Clint Eastwood basically, and had him help out in a mundane situation where I had caps lock on, and turned it into a a Western thing and called him the Ringer, and the town went crazy for it. Social media exploded in it. Like, have fun at the same time, because with your student athletes, if they're going to be on campus, I approached 2 of them earlier that were just shooting hoops. Distance, mask was on, always wear the thing when you're within that. And I said, guys, we're going to try new projects, and we're going to come to you, and we're going to want you to be on camera and, show off your personality. Their eyes lit up. They want to be involved in this stuff. You never know if you've got some or has done skits in college or was in a play or has, the ability to be on camera and do stuff like that. Because then when you put those out, their friends eat it up, their parents eat it up, their siblings eat it up, their hometowns eat it up. And that's just a great way for a little levity in this situation.
Yeah, I would add to that. One of the things we've done in the past, and with our volleyball team, at one point we had them essentially play Pictionary, and they had to draw. They're horrible artists, and it's hilarious. So just doing little things like that in terms of social, and then on our website, that's kind of where, like I talked about earlier, when we start doing championship recaps and things like that, if we don't have current games, we're going to look back at some of the old games and kind of look at that history, just for some fresh content on our website.
And I think you make a great point, Jalen. It's, so much we've had to look forward. What's next? We can actually start to look back a little bit of what happened before us. We can look back 100 years ago. We can look for that content and tie those in for different things. We can say specifically on this day. And that's kind of the great part of this, is that there is no roadmap. Be creative, try new things. Look back, see what you can find. On social, people are going to see things that might hit differently. Is it that old-timey photo? Is it that current student athlete that has a special talent that you can utilize? We talked a little bit about re-airs, which we're going to do as well. Do we bring in students to be interviewed during those re-airs to talk specifically about plays, so you can hear from them as they're watching themselves, what's going through their head as they score the game-winning goal? They get a chance to break it down. You can go farther back, do re-airs from the 60s and 70s, 80s, 90s if you have it, and bring back those star players. Try and get everyone involved as best as you can right now. As we said, there's a lot of time for us to do these things. Some of it is going to be a lot easier for others than it is for us. But just try and identify things that might work for you. We started off with saying you're going to get a lot of different ideas. Don't feel that you need to try all of them. See what you have at your disposal that's not going to keep you there for 80 hours a week. And you can actually turn it around to get some great content that's going to get your fan bases, alumni, and administration really behind your cause.
Awesome stuff, guys. We got time for a few more questions. And once again, we have a bunch of questions that were sent in. We tried to work through some of them. What we're going to do is we're going to get the 4 of us together on a Zoom here in the next couple days and go through those. And we'll do a part 2 to this to go back to some of those questions and everything. We'll put those on, on the on-demand on COSIDA.com. So, we're not shying away from any of the questions. It's just we're in a time crunch right now. So, Sean Medeiros had a great question, and want to say hey to Sean. And once again, and Derek, real quick, Division III, D3 side, you guys are doing a really cool thing, I believe tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken, or it's coming up very soon.
August 19th is what I have. There's 4 different things going on, and one of which my good buddy Adam Ledyard is leading. You got social media strategy, recruiting, and creative projects. Overall SID strategies, managing staff, whether it's interns, assistants, GA. So a lot of the stuff we talked about, student athlete engagement, conference offers, perspectives and strategies, and video strategies and telling your story. People from Middlebury, ETBU, IWU, Messiah, Babson, Manhattanville, Northwest Conference. I mean, there's just so much going on there for you to learn that, we've given you some great stuff, but you've got phenomenal people coming up for the D3 event that you really got to check out.
Absolutely. So we want to make sure we give a plug to that as well. So Sean's question, and real quick answers to this, guys. How is everyone promoting the academic side of their school's offerings? If we're being tasked with helping with recruiting, that piece is always equally as important.
Everything
we don't have it.
Go ahead. Hit it.
So we don't have any academics. We don't really focus on that at all. So I really wouldn't know how to answer that question. So I'm going to turn it over to these guys.
For us, we started a couple years ago that we do pretty consistently. It's just basically a why jewel. It's a question we ask them every year, and when they sign, and they, we go through and kind of find those answers on their forms, and then we take a photo of them and put simple graphic together, or even just a quote on Twitter and a photo. And for most of them, the answers are not really about athletics. They might mention a coach or the team they really liked, but for the most part, at Jewel, we're very high academic standards here, and so 99% of them, it comes down to the academics, and that's why they chose it to begin with. So we share their direct words. Our students are our best recruiters.
And I think we're all in the same sentiment as we realize that whether it's advertently or inadvertently, we are all recruiters. Everything we do has an eye from somewhere, and it can be a high schooler or a potential transfer or someone that wants to come back and come to graduate school, whatever. So when it comes to that and our live stream capabilities are phenomenal, we reach out to the enrollment side and say, give us commercials, give us content. We've got all this ad space and we've got hundreds of listeners or viewers per game. Let us play your commercials. So we take exactly, this is why you should come to Sul Ross, and phenomenal commercials that the enrollment side does. So to play those and to put them out in our social media when we can, and also like with my new job or my new co-venture with the PR department, we can help with the I Love Sul Ross. I can grab a camera and I can go shoot that for him because I have a couple spare hours that between projects. So again, when it comes to that, you've got to reach out a hand. And when a hand gets reached out to you, because I know many of the SIDs that are on this panel right now, I saw so many names I knew. A lot of you can edit, a lot of you can graphic edit, a lot of you can shoot, a lot of you can voiceover, a lot of you can be talent. If someone comes knocking on your door from enrollment or sciences and says, hey, I like what you did there, can you lend a hand? You're gonna right there lend a hand to recruitment when it comes to not just student athletes, but students in general. And a rising tide rises all ships. So, and I think student and athletics and student athletes and the university in general, they have to go hand in hand, because again, we're all at the end of the day trying to come up with the same result.
And quickly to give a real answer there, Jim. Yeah, I guess I will. So it's student athlete, obviously. So this is an opportunity to really put the focus on the student piece of that. And for us, it's really looking at our alumni who have gone on to do great things. When the pandemic hit, immediately it's okay, who's a nurse and working on the front lines, who's a doctor and actually working for a cure. Yale was actually able to partner with the NBA to look at efficacy of certain drugs and treatments and possible cures for COVID. So finding those tie-in stories, work directly with your alumni offices to find out who's actually involved. Tab your coaches. A lot of them have their own alumni network. So who's working at the Fortune 500 companies? And again, that comes full circle. Now that's recruiting. You're able to see not only did they score 500 goals, but they're also, running this hedge fund on top of it. The tagline is, a 4-year decision for the next 40 years of your life. So it's right there for you. Do some digging, find out about your academic side of your institutions. Many times we're so focused in on our teams because we have 35 of them and we need to be. Let's utilize this time wisely and definitely put academics at the forefront of that.
Absolutely, guys. Well, we are at the top of the hour, and once again, we are going to get these three back together again here over the next couple days. I know there's some questions left in the queue, and I know we've got some that were turned in from earlier. And we're going to, go ahead and pose those questions to this great panel, and we'll put that up on demand on COSIDA.com. But if you have any other questions, if you've seen the promos that have been on Twitter from the COSIDA website, from the COSIDA Twitter feed, feel free to shoot us all a direct message via Twitter and all that stuff. We'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions. But thanks so much, guys. Appreciate you taking some time out here. And I'm going to thank you in advance for taking a little bit more time than we're going to ask of you here in the next couple days. So we'd like to thank everybody. We'd like to thank you for joining today's session. And once again, a big thanks to the three of these individuals here. Reminder, this will be on demand on COSIDA.com later on today. It'll also be in a podcast form and be on our COSIDA YouTube channel. We'll have all the links for you on the COSIDA website. We got a lot of professional development stuff coming up over the next bunch of months. Make sure you're constantly tuning in to COSIDA.com for later on in August and throughout the fall. We're going to have a ton of information. We've got a lot of things planned coming up here in the fall for everybody as we continue our listening and leading series as part of the continuing educational side of things. And we once again want to thank our great corporate partner, Capital One. Thanks so much to our panel. Thanks so much for you to tuning in and taking some time out of your day here today. We hope you enjoy the rest of the summer. Please stay safe out there, and we will see everybody very soon on our next Listening and Leading webinar right here on COSIDA.